Hi, welcome to PlanStrongerTV. I'm your host, David Holland. On today's program, we're going to talk about continuing care retirement communities. My guest today, Brad Breeding, joining us again, certified financial planner, to talk about CCRCs and why they're an important part of your overall plan for long-term care. Let's start. Continuing care retirement community. That's a mouthful. I mean, I would have been tempted to change the channel if I were you. What are we talking about here? Well, a continuing care retirement community is one of the options for where you live in retirement. It's a place where you can make sure that you can have the care you need when you need assistance. And the whole idea is the continuing care. It's basically a continuum of being able to get care in different settings based on your needs. Now, when people retire, the first thought isn't always, gosh, who's going to take care of me when I can't do things? But for a lot of people that think ahead, plan ahead, and of course for financial planners, it's on our minds to make sure we're thinking about all the things that can mess up your retirement, that can interfere with your standard of living, the lifestyle to which you would like to become accustomed in retirement, and to make sure that you can do the things you want to do. And if you can't do them all on your own, to know how you're going to pay for it. And so with the growing population of retirees in the United States, 10,000 baby boomers are turning 70 every day. With the growing number of people that are going to need some form of service during their lifetime, 2/3 of people 65 years or older will need some form of long-term care during their lifetime. And when they do, the average length of stay is about 3 years, 2 for men, 4 for women. So when you put all that together, there's a real need to plan for and consider all the options. Long-term care insurance, paying for it yourself out of pocket, earmarking an account where you'll use that for the long-term care, having family help you. All those things are options to consider. And so which one makes sense for you depends totally on your situation. But being able to talk about CCRCs as part of the plan is important. I'm very glad to have a returning guest, Brad Breeding, join us to talk more about this. He's a certified financial planner and has specialized in the area of CCRCs. So let's get right to it. What is a continuing care retirement community? CCRC. Well, luckily for us, you and me, Brad Breeding is in the studio with me here. Brad, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. So Brad is a certified financial planner since 2006. Has worked as an advisor, and also wrote the book, author of What's the Deal with Retirement Communities, and that's what we're going to talk about. So we need to know what the deal is. So thanks for being here. Sure. I know you've also done a lot of work in helping people figure out how to evaluate and select the right retirement community for their situation with My Life Site, which is the website that you co-founded and you're the president of the company. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Right. Well, welcome, and we're going to take advantage of your knowledge right now, Brad. I want to dive in because I appreciate you coming and visiting with us from North Carolina and spending some time with us here in the studio in Daytona Beach. So let's really get to the heart of this. I know that you spent a lot of time focused on continuing care retirement communities, and besides that being a mouthful, for a lot of people, it's really a foreign concept unless they've had a personal experience with it. So, and I won't kid you, I know some, but not a lot about them, so you can help us understand how they work. I got a list of questions for you. Sure. How they work, are they regulated, are they rated, are they profit, not for profit, who owns them, how do you pick them, all that.
Sure.
Okay,
Let's
in a short time.
What do you want to start with?
Start with what are they in their basic form? Okay,
so a continuing care retirement community is really one option for a long-term care plan. The way it works is a CCRC, a little shorter than saying the full word.
Right.
Some people call them life plan communities. But a CCRC really is designed for somebody who lives independently today. Maybe they're still very active, very healthy and all of these things, but they want to be somewhere that in the future, if their needs change, whether it's suddenly or gradually, they want to be somewhere that they know the care that they're going to need is going to be available to them right there on site. Usually that's the case. And so what that does, it gives people peace of mind for them to know that they're not going to be a burden to their family, their adult children. It's often viewed as a gift to the children because we've done our planning, and you kids don't have to worry as much and that kind of thing. So, but so you move in while you're independent. As your needs progress, they have those services available on site, and there's a cost for that. But that's conceptually, that's how a CCRC works.
Okay, so you start out theoretically or in practicalities, you start out with a lower level of care perhaps, or actually you start out just living there almost like it's an apartment, right? Or like a townhouse. Right.
So a lot of them are apartment style. Some have villas or townhouses actually available. Some have freestanding homes. So there's all kinds of, there's a variety of choices that are out there, but that's exactly right. So, whether you want to be in a kind of a smaller apartment or still have your own home, those options
It's all part of one community.
That's right.
Generally
speaking.
So once you can't, so once you've bought into this life care plan, and you're in that home, you need help of some sort at some point. Then the people are employees of the facility, and they can come in and take care of you and help you and give you what you need in that setting. And then when that doesn't work, you can go to the next.
That's right. The thing that makes a CCRC unique from any of the other retirement communities that are out there is the fact that there's a contract actually between that resident and the community that basically says, we're making this commitment to you.
Okay.
So first you have that, kind of that commitment to provide that housing and health care essentially for lifetime. And then CCRCs generally have that highest level of care. So there's some retirement communities out there that are not CCRCs that may offer some care. Maybe it's supportive services where they'll come into your apartment and help you a little bit on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
Some may actually have a licensed assisted living facility on site.
Okay.
But they're still not a CCRC because they don't have that higher level of care. So that's kind of what's unique about CCRCs. They kind of span that full spectrum usually. Again, I always say usually because there are variations. But
well, because they are different and they're not all created equal.
Exactly. They're not all created equal.
And that's part of why, of course, you built the website to be able to help people evaluate and select. So are they regulated?
Yes and no. Depends on the state. So they are not regulated at the federal level. They're regulated at the state level. So in the 38 or 40 so states that have CCRCs, most regulate them. Some do not. And there's really been no research showing whether CCRCs perform better in states that are regulated or not regulated. Or I should say there's no research showing that there is a difference at all between the two. But nonetheless, depending on the state, whatever that state level entity, usually the Department of Insurance, sometimes it's other departments that will regulate them. And
do they get a rating like a hotel?
They don't get a rating. No, there are some independent.
I want to stay in a 5-star.
Yeah, I mean, there's some independent websites out there that offer those kind of things, reviews and ratings and so forth. But what's important to understand, I think, from a regulatory standpoint is that the assisted living and the skilled care facilities that are within a CCRC, those are licensed just like any other They're licensed separately for that type of care. But when we talk about regulation of a CCRC, it's really looking more at the overall operation, independent living, and a lot of times really the financial aspects. Is that community managing their money in a prudent manner that they're going to be able to meet?
Because they've got to have reserves to honor the commitments they're making to people because this contract is for life.
That's
most
right.
of the time.
That's right. And so some states are going to regulate that a little more closely than others. So the consumer still has to do their due diligence.
So in doing that due diligence, there is an evaluation you do of the different types of facilities and their contracts. So for the audience, Brad, what do you see as some of the big surprises people have when it starts time to look at the contract and the facility?
Yeah, the first one I would say comes to mind is the cost.
Okay. Well, that's good. Be honest.
Yeah, some CCRCs, frankly, can be rather pricey.
All right, give us a ballpark. So to get in, let's say just kind of the quote-unquote the average, and I know that's a little hard. What are we looking at to get in? Does it matter how old we are at the time and how healthy we are? How does it work?
No, it's really not based on age and health. They do look at your health because you have to be somewhat healthy before they'll allow you to enter into a CCRC contract.
Okay.
But the pricing and so forth is not really based on your health like it would be perhaps with some other forms of insurance and so forth. But so to answer your question, an average, you know, looking at the lower end, if you're talking just a one-bedroom studio, kind of the smallest, you can probably find on average somewhere in the $100,000 to $150,000 in terms of an entry fee.
Okay.
And then probably $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Okay.
If you look at something more like a two-bedroom, double occupancy, two-bedroom apartment or something along those lines, probably more in the $200,000 to $300,000 range on average. Monthly rate's probably more around $4,000 or so.
But once you've done that, then the CCRC is agreeing for that money to take care of you.
That's right. That's the commitment they're making to you.
Okay.
Yes, and now, you know, there have been CCRCs that have been in financial trouble and have not been able to fully meet
not all CCRCs are created equal.
That's right. Now, it's been a very small percentage of the overall number of communities that are out there, but it certainly has happened and continues to happen. So you just need to be aware of that. Make sure you're looking at providers that have a really solid track record, strong management team. They'll make their audited financial statements available to you, and some other questions that people really need to ask.
That's good. So the decision about a CCRC and thinking about these costs that we're talking about, you know, you're not talking about, you know, a hotel room rate. You're talking about a significant commitment up front and then an ongoing fee every month to compare that to other options that may be available to the particular person, be it buying a long-term care insurance policy, self-pay, all these other options that they might have. So that's where people really need to evaluate. And I know this is a thing that you really advocate, Brad, is that people plan ahead and think about these things well in advance.
Right. Yeah, so the CCRC, obviously that helps to have a plan in place. We talked about a minute ago. I think another piece of it, though, that's really important to think about is the lifestyle that's available to you there. And everybody's different, so there's no one single choice that's going to be right for everybody.
Okay.
But for those who do think a CCRC may be an appropriate choice, one of the things to really consider is the lifestyle, because there's really a big focus on wellness, on staying socially engaged. A lot of communities do a great job of getting residents involved in projects that are outside of the community, and a lot of these are resident-driven activities. So, you know, some communities are much more, you know, have a lot more energy maybe than some of the others, where residents really take hold and say, we're going to kind of make this community our own, and they get out and get involved with all kinds of things, and it's just a really good environment because we know that as people age, that social interaction, that engagement, that stimulation really has an impact on health.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting as you describe that, Brad, is that these communities, these CCRC companies, have an interest in your staying healthy. You know, they want you to stay healthy for two reasons. One, you're not costing more money for requiring a higher level of care. And guess what? You're alive longer to pay your fee. So that's kind of nice that they have an incentive. I mean, it sounds funny, but it is kind of good. And now that brings me to another great question I wanted to get to, and that is, who owns them? Are they corporations? Are they, you know, these, you know, anonymous organizations, or is this something where they're privately held? Or you mentioned audited financials.
Right. Well, about 80% are going to be nonprofit.
Okay.
Probably 15, 20 years ago, that's probably more like 95%. So you had more and more for-profit providers coming into the marketplace. But still, the vast majority are not-for-profit providers. Some of them are freestanding, just you know, single location sort of places, and then others are owned by a larger nonprofit that may have 5 or 6 communities in a region or in different parts of the country. Okay,
so there's kind of a change there, and I imagine that the fact that you have for-profit companies coming in is not, you know, an accident. It's because they're seeing the aging of the baby boomers and the generation behind them, and they're seeing all these people retiring, knowing that they will be hitting 70, 75, 80, and the chances of their needing care is greater, so they're saying, hey, we've got a solution that may make sense for you.
Well, that's exactly right. They see that need coming, and I think also just there's been more favorable financing options in the past, over the past 5 to 10 years ago with the interest rate environment. It's made it a little more of a viable choice for some of the for-profit providers to get into.
For them to, with lower rates, to be able to build these facilities out.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So there's accountability. I get that. That's important for people to be able to evaluate and select. So with this whole process, one of the big questions that people are going to have, Brad, is when you talk about laying out what could be, you know, 100, 150, or on up to $250,000, $300,000, that's a lot of money. The natural question is, well, do I ever get any of that back, or is my family getting any of that back?
Yeah, it's a great question. Many communities provide refundable entry fees. So a lot of times they'll provide a choice. So they'll have, you know, entry fee number one, which they typically call their traditional contract, is refundable if you're there for a few, let's say if you move out, or heaven forbid if death were to occur the first couple of years, you would get some of that back. It's kind of on a declining scale. And if you're there more than 2, 3, 4 years, whatever that contract says, there's no refund of that remaining. So at least you have those early years of knowing, hey, if you don't like it, you move out, you get most of your money back type of thing. Others are refundable for as long as you're there. It may be 50% refundable, maybe 90% refundable. Some have even been fully refundable. But the trade-off is that to get a refundable contract, you have to pay more. The entry fee is higher.
You mean there's no free lunch?
There's no free lunch.
Come on. I always tell people there's 100 cents in every dollar. There's 100 pennies in every dollar, so something's got to give.
Something's got to give, that's right.
That makes sense.
So, you know, from a planning perspective, you've got that whole thing of, well, does it make sense to pay that extra amount to get some of this back? And that's when you start thinking about time frame, time value of money. I mean, that's, and then people kind of decide what makes the most sense for them.
Well, when you and I did a previous program, we talked about the cost of long-term care in general, and especially when you have people, families stepping in and providing care, and you'd referenced a study where there was like $300,000 of lost or not earned wages and Social Security and all that for the family caregiver. So simple comparison here, that's $300,000, and if somebody has, though, the financial resources to where they could go into a continuing care retirement community for less than that, and not only save the money that the person would have lost, but also not put it on them, you're exactly right. This is a big gift to the family to have this in place so that people don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and I think more and more people want to provide that gift. You know, in the conversations that I have, kind of what I see out there is, generally speaking, people don't want their children, their adult children, to have to care for them. Now, I'm not sure it's always been that way. In a different time when families kind of lived together, it was different. But today, you know, you have families that are located all over different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and I think most people, they want to see their kids continue to be able to thrive and have time with their own children, and they don't want to burden them with that. Even though they know those kids would take that on if they needed to. I think most people want to plan independently. That's one of the changes I'm starting to see.
So maybe it's part of the shift is not only just the focus on it because of the demographic shift and more people retiring and baby boomers and all that, but also just the reality that, and I read this statistic the other day, that the average distance between family members in the United States is 1,200 miles. So to be able to have that care and not put that on the family, and also I think the concern for running out of money. You say, well, I've got this money now, I know I can do this, be it either the continuing care retirement community or maybe getting the insurance to take care of it. So, well, we're lucky to have you come in and talk with us, Brad, because this is a complicated subject, and I applaud the work you're doing because you're helping people evaluate and then select, you know, the right particular facility or arrangement for them. So it's good stuff, good stuff.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and help.
All right, well, keep at it, and for our listeners and viewers, they just need to focus on this and make sure this is part of their financial plan and discussion with the family and with their financial people and financial advisors. So, very good. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Pleasure.
All right, it's time for viewer questions. So this question is by far the best question I will ever receive on this show because it's from my wife. So here's the question. I'll read it to you. Wonderful question. Did I mention that? Okay. So our son will be going to college in a few years. His sisters will follow soon after. Are we doing enough to save for their college educations? And how do we accomplish this while also saving for our retirement? Did I mention this was a good question? Great question. All right. So, and not just because it's from my wife. It's actually a very important question for a lot of people who are trying to save for their own retirement, save for college, take care of maybe aging parents, you know, that sandwich generation. But it's also an important question for grandparents who maybe want to help out. So the short answer to my wife's question is yes, we are saving enough for college. And yes, we're saving for our retirement. And yes, we're working on other things that we've agreed that we want to work on for our own personal financial goals. So, to the college. First, there are a lot of choices that we can look at for how to save and pay for college. Beyond, of course, the expectation or hope for some college scholarships. There's also savings through, and I'll give them to you in no particular order, 529 plans, prepaid college savings plans or prepaid college tuition plans, brokerage accounts, taking a line of credit on your house. There's a whole range of choices. Oh, and custodial accounts, UTMA, UGMA, or just generic custodial accounts. All of these are ways to put money aside for college for that person that we hope goes to college, and then that money can be used for that specific purpose. Why do we need it to be other than just a general part of our money? A big part of it is making it something that we focus on. Where we put our focus is where we tend to act. So if I say I have this dedicated account for college education, then that tends to encourage or create a focus for putting money in, because it doesn't matter what return you get if you don't have money in there that's working. So all those are choices, and each one has its advantages and disadvantages. There's no perfect investment. There's no perfect way to save for college. But the key thing is to put the money in. So in my case, for example, my wife and I have our goals. And one of the goals is to have money set aside so that when my son is ready to go to college, we've got a dedicated sum of money to help pay for it. Then for his two sisters, we're doing the same. Now, for me, because of the kind of work I do as a financial planner, having my own business, my earnings will vary because of how much business we do, how many clients we have, how well we perform with the investments, all of those things. So for us, flexibility is very important. So we're doing a regular brokerage account. We don't get any tax benefits because it's just a regular account, but that flexibility is an advantage to us. Now for other people, they might want to use a 529 or some of the other tax-favored type of savings accounts where you don't have to pay taxes on their earnings. But for me, and this is why this question is also very good, it depends on your situation. There's a lot of choices. But for us, that flexibility is what makes doing it that way more important. So yes, we are saving enough for the kids' education. Great question. All right, one more thing before you go. Social Security. There's a lot of talk in the financial industry about delaying Social Security. Delay, 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 delay. Don't take it early. You're crazy if you do. Sometimes they use stronger language than that. There's valid reasons for delaying Social Security. It depends on your situation. Okay, the earliest you can take it is 62, and you can delay up to 70 for most people. Their normal retirement age is 66 to 67, somewhere in there. You get your regular full benefits at 66 or 67. Take it early, you get less. Take it later, you get more. There are good reasons to take it early. Not everybody should delay to get more. Let me give you just a couple of them. Number one, you lose your job, or your health doesn't permit you to work, and you're 60, 62, 63, and you go, well, what am I going to do? Nothing wrong with taking Social Security if that's what you need to do to make ends meet. Part-time work. Maybe you can't get full-time work, or maybe you're trying to phase out, or maybe there are reasons that you need to be part-time. Maybe you need to care for somebody else, and you only can work part-time. Maybe you think you'll have other income and assets coming to you in the future. Maybe you're going to get a pension later, or maybe you know you're going to get an inheritance, but in the meantime, you need income. There are good reasons to take Social Security early. Family history is another one. If nobody in your family lives past 70, and you're thinking of waiting until 70, and unless there's something really unusual about you, then you might want to take it early or earlier than the latest you can wait. And then the last one, which is really on a lot of people's mind, is they doubt Social Security. They don't know that it's going to be there. And if you're going to lie awake every night wondering if it's going to be there, you may not get it anyway because you're going to have a heart attack from stress, not knowing if you're going to have your Social Security. So this can be dogmatic, and it can be a question for a lot of people. Don't let it be. Evaluate your individual situation, and that will help you plan stronger.
If you would like more information about the topics and our guests featured in this series, please visit our website at PlanStrongerTV.com. Also, if you have a question you would like David to answer, please send it to questions@PlanStrongerTV.com.